Hey guys, welcome to the show. The date is July 22nd, and we're freestyling today, talking NFL news notes, obviously the virus update with Tom Santanello. What's going on, Tom?
What's going on?
Tom, I wanted to do a show. Actually, it's kind of more your idea. I wanted to do a show just where we freestyle, just talk as if we're not even on the air, not recording this thing, because we have pretty good conversations off the air, argue, debate. So I want to kind of bring that to the show here. So no real structure to the show other than you're just going to be up to date with some news notes and get our thoughts on what is going on with the NFL. Is there going to be a season, stuff like that? Keep it open, keep it freestyle, keep it chill, keep it relaxed. If you guys are driving, commuting, whatever you're doing, this is what you should be listening to. So let's roll with it, Tom. Where do you want to start?
I think you wanted to start based upon if there's going to be a season.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think 100%. I just don't see there not being a season. I can't believe there's so many things now. There's so many debates. To kneel or not to kneel, to mask or not to mask, to season or not to season. I'm going to go with season on this one, Tom. Easy. I mean, I don't see it any other way.
Well, they're going to attempt to have a season. I don't know if anything can happen negative, which obviously there can be some negatives. It's just positive tests. That's really it. But I mean, I think you keep an eye on the soccer teams have been playing. I don't think they've had really many issues. I think you have to keep an eye on baseball and soccer teams mostly have been in in Europe, but you have to keep an eye on baseball and basketball. Basketball's different. They're doing it in a bubble. So baseball would be a little more easier to see just because they're in America too. Both of those teams, on those sports. So they're going to definitely attempt to have it a season with probably no fans in the stands. Some states have said they would allow 25%, something like that. I don't know if there's going to be the same rules for every team, but they're going to attempt to have it. They just made some changes. They're cutting down the rosters, I believe, from 90 to 80 guys going into camp. Remember, they only keep 53 anyway. So they cut down, or they're supposed to cut down to 0 preseason games. So they're trying to minimize the risk over the next 30 days or, a little more than that. So they can start 30 to 45 days so that they can start the season on time. So they're really trying to make sure there's no outbreaks during camp because their biggest concern would be outbreaks. And now they're minimizing that in camp. So the biggest concern would be in September, October, where, multiple guys test positive and they have to put them on the IR. What do you do if you have to put 10 guys automatically or 20 guys test positive on the IR? That's the problem that would cancel the season or postpone.
Right. So you got to really be cautious. Got to be watching your symptoms. Got to be tested. Now I'm assuming they should be doing tests. Like, let's say it's week 1. Now, let's say you play Sunday. Do you think you think everybody's going to be tested, let's say on the Thursday, or how do you think this is going to work?
I can't remember if they said every day. It's either every day or every other day. They're going to test them all the time.
That's good.
Yeah, they're going to do that. They definitely are, but they're still young guys. They're more worried about guys going outside of the facility, going out to eat, not really listening to them and going to contract and test positive from getting it somewhere else. That's more the concern.
I'm worried about Phillip Rivers and Frank Gore, some of the older guys, Tom Brady. Maybe they might get these guys contracted. There's no way out.
These guys usually, most of them will be fine because they're in good shape. I mean, the problem is the opposite, them walking around with it and not knowing it because then they infect more people. But there's some guys, the other thing, you're going to start seeing this. Football, I think, is the least of the worries in this matter, but because of the money. It has the least money compared to other sports with, the multimillionaires and stuff. But you're going to have guys opt out of the season. They're trying to negotiate that. If you opt out of the season, can you get a small salary, a couple $100,000 maybe? So there will be some older veterans. The younger guys, I don't think you'll see really any of them, a very few amount that will opt out of the season. But you will see some guys opt out of the season and not play. You've seen that in baseball.
Right.
You've seen it in basketball. Now, granted, most of these guys that opt out are very well taken care of financially. That's a big factor in this. Some guys, may have a sick young kids or sick mother or something. They don't want to risk bringing it home to infect, and they're going to take the year off. But there has to be a clause in there where they get paid for that. That's what they're trying to figure out now.
Yeah, it says NFLPA reveals 59 players have tested positive for COVID at some point ahead of training camp. So numbers are 59, 70, whatever it is. They're not revealing who the players are, by the way, are they?
No, I don't think they can do that, or there's an agreement they can't. I mean, it becomes they do that in baseball, but they automatically put them on the injured list. But it becomes obvious. Like you can just come to your conclusion if this guy's not playing for
Yeah.
medical reason, and the medical reason's not a torn ACL or something. You kind of get the idea. You can put two and two together.
Now, for fantasy football reasons, I implore you guys, if you're a commissioner, if you talk to the commissioner, make sure that you guys are getting more IR spots and more depth on your roster. Now, typical bench is around 5 people on the bench, typically to 6. I think you should have a bench of at least 8 to, I mean, I would say a minimum of 8, up to, 12 even. So you have a lot of depth, because this is, I could see, maybe McCole Hardman or Tyreek Hill or someone like that gets COVID week 3. You need another wide receiver to plug in. So make sure you have a lot of depth on your rosters. I want to make that a disclaimer. Now, I want to say here also, the NFL, though, I mean, the NBA, if the NBA happens, I can't imagine, the football season not happening. I mean, NBA is a little more touchy-feely, sweat, rubbing up against each other. With football, at least you have a little, I know there's a lot of physicalities, but you could potentially wear a helmet, right? You got some maybe gloves on. I don't know.
Oakley, I think it was, designed a new mouth guard. It's really like most of the people get the disease or virus from, I think, droplets from the mouth. So they have a new like mouth guard that they're trying to have. However, you need to keep in mind the NFL is in a bubble, and they already had their season pretty much. They're only playing, I think, 8 games and then like a playoffs.
Or the
So
NBA, I mean.
yeah, the NBA is
Yeah.
only playing 8 games in the playoffs. So like they don't have a season. They're just going to try to whiz through, and they're in a bubble. They can't even leave the bubble. If you leave it, I think you have to quarantine, lockdown for 10 days. So it's very different in that aspect. And I think that's, but maybe it is higher risk because they don't wear the helmet. Maybe it is safer in football,
Yeah, so we're going to be doing virtual tailgating. For all of you guys that don't know, head on over to Fan to Fan Network on Instagram, or fantofannetwork.com. The website's up. Make sure you guys are following that Twitch. I'll link it below, FTFN. So you guys come on, chill with all of us team ambassadors before games to watch, have a talk, watch us talk about football, and you guys can chime in. So, because there's not going to be a lot of real tailgating. So we're going to create it virtually for everybody. So fantofannetwork.com. Follow the network. So yeah, Tom, anything else you want to add here on the virus situation here, and then with other news?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a different season, but the 0 preseason games is going to affect a lot of things that people don't know go on. Position battles, guys making camp, undrafted guys. They give guys rest. They bring in guys like say Ben Roethlisberger that doesn't play as much during training camp, doesn't practice much during the season. They rely on these last 10 guys to kind of be camp bodies, they call them.
Right.
So those guys really had no shot at making the team anyway. But they're there for camp bodies. So, but that's coming back from the 90 player rosters. Now they're supposed to cut it back to 80, but then the 0 preseason games also gives a lot of those 6th, 7th round picks, and other guys like undrafted free agents to chance they probably not make the team. I mean, granted, they can still perform well in camp, but also they lose a lot of footage and preseason tape, which will affect other teams picking them up later on, or could affect them. Like there's nothing like a real game, even though they're not even allowed to have scrimmages as far as with other teams like they have in the years past. They have joint practices, but now it's just going to rely on what's going on in practice. And I know they're trying to start things slow, whereas they don't just go into camp and go into pads. They're trying to, acclimate to work out slower, just get in the groove more, kind of have like, not really OTAs, but something like that going into camp where they can get used to it. So it's going to affect, I think, the later round guys, some position battles. We'll see some of that. It's going to be limited opportunity to showcase what you got.
Right. So yeah, I mean, rookies coming in, they're not going to get as many reps as they typically could. Undrafted players. So it's really going to affect those undrafted players. Like Benjamin, is he like he's not going to he's in trouble now with the Cardinals. He was drafted in the 7th round, for example.
I mean, I don't know if he's in trouble, but he's going to have less opportunity to get out there and get some opportunity in games, obviously, because those preseason games, they get the rust off of some players, which is another you have to be careful of. I think even veterans, they may be a little more rusty the first couple of weeks of the season. And those later round guys, like the guy you said, like he's just going to have less opportunity to show what he can do to make the team. And it's just, we just don't know what's going to happen. Is the coaches and GMs going to end up keeping a guy on the roster that's cheaper, or going with a guy, with a little bit higher ceiling, like a Benjamin, over maybe another 3rd string guy that they have there? or based on the promise and potential of a Benjamin. We just don't know how every team's going to handle it differently. I would have liked to see 2 preseason games, and then you still would have handled it differently, like because you may have, like, say, Tampa, like you mentioned, Tom Brady, and they may not even play any of their starters in those 2 preseason games because they don't want them to get a risk of
Of
anything.
course. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I would have liked to see in the 2 preseason games to get the players used to what's going on out there, and everything's going to be different. There's a lot of unknowns. I mean, with this whole virus, but in general, but just especially with sports. So they're kind of like going week by week. Like, listen, there's going to be an attempt to having a season. The season could be shortened. It could be canceled. Anything could happen. It just does. We just don't know because it's never been in a situation like this.
Also, from a fantasy perspective, once you start seeing some preseason games, some players break out and their ADP skyrocket. So, for example, if we saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just break out for a huge run, then now he's all of a sudden even more inflated than his second round average draft position. So, guys like myself that kind of know who the sleepers are, and that's why, guys, get the 16 round draft solution at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. This is the game changer. You're going to know who the sleepers are, so you're going to already have them on your roster so that when they do break out, let's say week 1, 2, 3, or even mid-season, you've already got that sleeper that would have probably showcased some of their skills in the preseason that you won't be able to see, but you already know based on the depth chart situation, talent in college. I've done all that research. You're going to know. So, yeah, I mean, I think the season's going to happen. Like I said, going back to September 11th, I mean, that was right in the heart of the season. That was at the beginning of the season, and I think the games continued to play on that year where, the U.S. was under all this stress. I mean, the NFL didn't say, oh, let's stop because of September 11th. That was even scarier because there was so much uncertainty of a potential attack again. So now you're looking at a virus that they got well ahead of this. I mean, this is like going back in March. I mean, you've got a ton of time to prepare for this. I mean, there should be really no excuse at this point.
I think you're going to see 2 things. I think you're going to see one, not about 9/11, but I think it was 2011 when there was a lockout or a strike, whatever. It's a lockout, and they didn't have OTAs or anything like that, and they went straight into training camp. Obviously, it's going to be different going into camp than it was then, but you're going to see a lot of guys who were training on their own, a lot of guys who weren't training. So you're going to see guys showing up out of shape. You're going to see guys not be able to have that time with their team that they were drafted to, or free agents signed with new teams. That's why you see a lot of players getting together and have their own workouts. I think you're going to see a lot of similar stuff that happened back then. Guys came in, they weren't ready, they weren't prepared. they different playbook. You're going to see a lot of more correlation to that. And then the other thing, I've been saying this for a while, I still don't know if there's going to be any issues with the money. They're trying to withhold 35% of the player's paycheck into escrow. I know that's not going to happen, but the owners will be like, we're losing money, similar to the fight in baseball. And they just agreed to a new CBA, obviously, this year. So there's definitely talk about how do you handle the money this year and next year, because with no fans in the stands, the revenue goes down and the salary cap will be smaller next year. So you're going to have a lot of guys get released next year, unless they move some money around where they try to equal it over the next few years. The salary cap's set up over a percentage based upon the revenue that comes in. And if there's $15 billion last few years that have come in every year, there could be anywhere from 10 to 12 come in this year. So you see the salary cap is just a percentage of that, like about give or take a couple points. I forgot. So the players get a certain percentage of whatever it is, but the owners right now, the cap's about like 198, I think. If we lose $5 billion next year, the cap could be 150, 160. So 160 million a year. So figure that out. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to go and sign a Phillip Rivers for 1 year, 25 million. So there could be a lot of effects for next year, but I think they're trying to work that out, and that's going to become a problem. They waited a while for that because I think everybody thought it would be better by now. Football was considered the best sport to be because they didn't get their season cut off like basketball and baseball didn't get cut off. They just never started. So you're going to see some issues with the money too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and if there's going to be any protests and debates about that. So we got a lot of political stuff happening this year. To kneel or not to kneel, I think that's going to be a thing. But I think most players are going to be opting into kneeling, and I think it's going to be okay. I don't know how long that's going to be okay for. Do you think that's going to run? Is it going to be a weekly kneeling fest, or do you think this is going to be an ongoing political issue throughout the season? I see it being an issue. I mean, you're going to have your anti-kneelers versus your kneelers, and there's going to be a debate and there's going to be a battle, but it's not going to be a lot of fans in the stands. So you're going to have to be debate. The fans are going to be yelling at home if you're against it or for either way, right? Like, how does this play out? Is it going to be a weekly issue?
No, I think it's going to be, you're going to see more togetherness than you've ever seen in the past, most guys. But I think for a lot of guys, it'll last all season. For some guys, they'll do it in the beginning, then they won't care as much. Or I don't know. I don't get involved in that stuff as far as like my opinion, but I personally think that you're going to see it more in the beginning and it phases out towards the season. But you're going to see some guys that will never stop doing it. And the teams are and owners are going to allow pretty much whatever goes on. So I think they're allowing them to wear decals or something on their helmet now. So they're gonna, but they're gonna
They're,
make they don't want to make it a distraction for sure and make any negative comments towards it.
they're going to
So
accommodate. I think they're going to accommodate it this
yeah,
year. And I think you have to find a middle ground. This is why I don't really have an opinion on this. Because if I say that I'm all for standing, then people are going to get upset. If I'm all for kneeling, people are going to get upset. At the end of the day, I think both sides actually have a really good point of view, right? So to me, I'm pretty neutral on this. I could care less either way, whatever they decide here, let it be what it'll be. Like I said, to me, again, if you take a knee, I think kneeling, like if you kneel before me, I think that's respectful. So it's perspective, right? You think that kneeling is disrespectful, but when I propose to somebody, it's respectful. Everything is just kind of trained to have a certain perspective on it. So again, if you kneel to me, I'm not really offended. I think okay,
well,
kneel before the counselor. It's different. It's the thought process, right? It's crazy.
it just got lost in the message before. The message was never clear to people why they were kneeling. Many people thought people were kneeling to disrespect the flag, and that wasn't never the case.
Right.
However, people don't read into the details in the head; they just read headlines. So in reality, they were just trying to get a point across and a message across, and you have to agree with that. However, a lot of people disagree at the way they were going to do it, and people are always going to disagree in life. Everybody's not always going to agree on everything. So
Right.
I just think in the beginning, years ago, it could have been clarified the message better. But then again, you have people just going on Twitter and reading news and they just read the headlines, oh, and believe everything they see. So, like, listen, it is what it is. People are going to do it no matter what. And, they have a really good reason to do it. So just let it, people are just let it be now. Some people that still care aren't going to stand up to it. And a lot of people are more understanding because they took the time to, I guess, read the fine print, is what I can say, rather than read the headlines and know why people are doing it. And there's obviously been some issues that have caused it.
I think
So,
that's a big problem all the time. It's not reading the context of things. You just read the headline and then jump to conclusions. There's so many posts where I'll say something. I can't even give you an example. Let's just talk about David Montgomery for last year. I'll say something like, I love David Montgomery this season. He's going to be a workhorse. Draft him everywhere. That's just an example, right? And, CMC will decline or something like that. I still had CMC top 4 in my running backs last year. But there were statements being made where everyone said that, well, a lot of people said and made statements that I said Montgomery over CMC last year. Not the case. Never said that. I said I thought the upside was there. He looked great. The talent was there. And I was drafting him at ADP. He was coming off typically the 3rd round. Some leagues I went Jacob. Some leagues I went Montgomery. And CMC, I just was kind of dancing around him. So I went Zeke early. I went David Johnson. I went, Saquon in some leagues. I went Kamara. It varied on the league, right? But they have the set top guys. But what happens is people hear, I like Montgomery, CMC will decline, and everyone will say, hey, Joe said Montgomery over CMC last year. Not the case, right? So again, people just kind of hear what they want to hear, say what they want to say, and there's not much thought process. It's really robotic sometimes. It's crazy.
a lot of people make statements without being educated.
Right.
See that in the NFL, whether it's fantasy or not, in the media. A lot of people don't even know football. They start talking, but it could be said for what you said on the opposite. Like I told you, I like Le'Veon Bell, but it doesn't mean you want to take him in the top 5. I think
Right.
he'll have a good year. I mean, Odell's going to put up 1,000 yards, but he's not going to be worth a 1st-round pick in your mind. I'm not saying
Right.
won't, but Odell consistently, if he's healthy, puts up 1,000 yards, right? But where does that get you? Like that still means he's a good player. It's just not like worthy. I'm just using any example. You can make up any example. It
Right.
mean that that guy's worth the 1st-round pick in here or there. Or in the opposite, that's the opposite of what you said, which you say, even, well, you did say like Dave Montgomery, but you're not going to take him over those other guys if you had the 1st pick, but you would take him somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round or wherever, right? It's just a matter of people not understand. Like, yeah, people don't, it's the concept. They don't understand the substance, and they just look at the headline. And that's what you have in the media. That's why there's so many false things in the media that people speak on things that they don't know what they're talking about.
All right. Speaking of false things, they don't know what they're talking about, and headlines. Antonio Brown recently, a couple days ago, saying that he's retiring from the NFL. Now, I don't mean to be an ass here, but don't you have to be in the NFL to retire from the NFL? Is he a free agent? Is he technically in the NFL? What's the story there?
I don't know. I mean, he's a free agent, but
Okay.
I don't know the details of everything that's going on. I mean, he could have received some bad news or something. He obviously can still play. He works out every day. Still one of the, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Right, for sure. Talent's never an issue,
I
but it's
don't, I
character.
don't know the details of if there was any behind the scenes talk, so I can't speak on that. I really don't. I don't think he would retire if he was given the opportunity to come back. And maybe there's some frustration that he's not on a team right now. Maybe that's it. I don't know, but I think he would come back still. And I think it's just some of the teams may be scared to pull the trigger with knowing that his investigation is not resolved yet because it's not made public.
Listen, his talent is phenomenal, second to none, arguably the best receiver in the league. But it just sounds when you come out and say something like that, it's like saying, it's like going to ask a woman, "Hey, I'm really interested in you. I want to date you. You're the best thing since sliced bread. Will you date me?" And then she rejects him, and then he's like, "Well, okay, no, that's fine. I don't really want to date you anyway." That's the vibe you're getting from this. It's kind of like his ego is letting him. He wants to kind of get the last word. That's the feel I'm getting from this. Maybe I could be wrong, but I
Maybe.
think that's what's happening here.
I mean, I think you can read between the lines, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's possible. I mean, we just don't know. I mean, he wants the investigation to be over, but they don't. It's not over, and it's not
Right.
fair in the sense that they drag it on that long. But maybe they don't like him. They probably don't. The NFL, the inner circle, the inner workings. Like I've been a part of that. If I'm talking upper level management, the commissioner, top 4 or 5 guys in the NFL, they don't handle things professionally. A lot of times, they do what they want. So they're going to continue to do what they want and not like no player is bigger than the game anyway. And they're going to always, it goes behind the shield, as they say. So they don't really give a shit. They're just going to do what they want to do, fear or not fear.
All right, let's talk about switch topics here. An NFL free agent recently, I think Rosenhaus picked up Freeman now. I think the news is Freeman was free agent. And then one sec, sorry, there was what did he get offered? Like 1 year, $4 million deal with the Seahawks. And then Freeman didn't want that, got turned down by his one agent. Now he's got a new agent. And like, where do you think Freeman ends up? And that's my first question. And number two, does he still have the talent to be a top, running back in the NFL?
Well, this is what I was telling you a couple things in prior weeks and just earlier today. Don't believe what you see. Who knows if you really got these deals of $4 million? It could have been a non-guaranteed deal too. Even if he did, it could have been non-guaranteed. That's why people just put headlines out there. That deal was never confirmed. I don't think. I mean, for him to get $4 million for a year is an easy deal. Why? First of all, he's not going to want a multi-year deal. Well, yeah, if it was high money, but nobody's going to give him big money anymore. He could have turned it down because he thought he was worth more than that. So it could be true. Well, we don't know if it's true. It could be a bad deal the way it was structured. It could have been up to $4 million with bonuses and stuff like that.
Right.
There's no Seeming came out on Twitter a month or so ago, said, ask me. I told you, like Tampa was saying that they offered him a deal. They never or talked about doing a deal, but I don't know, remember the whole details if his price was too high or something like that. But listen, obviously a guy coming off a big deal like that, he didn't play well last year. Number one. He's going to reprove himself. The Falcons paid Gurley about $5 million or so, $5.5 million to replace him. Freeman's best days are definitely behind him. He, last played really well a few years ago, right? But it's those running backs on the second deal. I think he can come in there and be a contributor on some teams. But then again, like I don't know. We don't know if that's a real deal he was offered, but it comes down to the money too. This guy's not going to play for a minimum deal. I don't even think his numbers were that good last year, were they?
No, not at all. No, he hasn't played. I mean, his big year, I think it was like 2015 or 2016, is a couple years ago. So yeah, he hasn't really done anything since. So
You're right.
Big thing. And then he's had the injury bug a little bit here and there. And
last year he didn't play. I mean, he played horrible. I think it was in 18 he had the injury bug, right? I mean, he only had 2,000-yard seasons in his career. Now I'm looking at it, 15 and 16. He can catch the ball, but he was never great. I think when they paid him that thought he was going to get better, which is what you're supposed to do when you sign a guy to a contract. But he's never really performed. And after he got paid, which is scary for me, he performed at a lesser rate. Now, granted, he was never been a workhorse back. They've always thrown the ball there. He's never been that workhorse kind of back, right? He's always done enough. And I think 4 million, if that was true, was a generous offer for him. I think he'll end up playing somewhere. If I'm him, I wait and I look at my situations and I wait till see someone gets hurt or someone gets the COVID.
Yeah, and then he
I'll
pounces
go
on
there.
the
But I just don't know if I don't know how good he is. I don't know if he's worth the money. Carlos Hyde, what did he get? He went to Seattle, right? Instead of Freeman. Like I said, Philly looked at him. Teams like Pittsburgh, if Connor gets hurt, I think you should wait till someone gets hurt. Like a guy like this isn't a great player, okay? But he's a capable running back in the NFL. Last year was his worst year. He averaged 3.6 yards a carry. But the Falcons have horrible offensive coordinator the last couple years, right? I don't love the guy. I think he can come in and do what Carlos Hyde did in Houston last year, have 1,000 yards and just be a decent running back.
Yeah.
I think he's more of a name than he is productive, and he's going to be expensive compared to what would you rather have him or a younger guy, that making $1 million?
I'd rather have the younger guy. Yeah. Yeah. Freeman looked good like in 2015 or 2016. He ran hard. Like when you watched him run, he looked kind of like a small but violent runner. Like he ran with heart. That's how I kind of defined him. But then I don't know, he just lost his edge. I don't know what it is. You get paid, you get incentivized, you eat the caviar, and you get all the fine foods.
Guys get paid, man.
What's that?
Guys get paid, and then their play goes down. It's just common sense. It's not common sense. You just look at it. The proof's in the pudding.
Hunger. That shows hunger, man. That shows hunger.
Work out or anything like that, but it is what it is sometimes.
You ever watch the old Rocky movies where Rocky got paid, and in Rocky 3 he was getting all those matches that were set up, and then Apollo pulls him over, takes him to the old gym, and he goes, "Look at those guys. What do you see? It's the eye of the tiger. It's the eye of the tiger, Rocky."
Yeah.
And they lose the eye of the tiger. They lose that hunger, and man, oh man, and this is good for fantasy. It relates to fantasy, man.
I told you though, like look at guys in their contract there this year. Aaron Jones. Now I don't think he's going to get the opportunity he had last year. Dalvin Cook's in a contract here. Leonard Fournette's in a contract here. There's like a really big free agent market for running backs next year too. So, listen, Leonard Fournette's a great running back. Dalvin Cook's a great running back. He's got to stay healthy, but he's a great running back. But there's these guys in their contract year, and guys perform a lot better. They're more motivated. They're whatever it is in their contract year.
How about Saquon? He's motivated. He still hasn't got the mega contract. He's due in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, but you got to look at different things because a first-round pick in the NFL is under contract for 4 years with a team option for a fifth. And this is a mistake. And now I don't want to compare these guys. I'm not comparing them. But this is the mistake the Rams made with Todd Gurley. They paid him too early. They didn't have to pay him that early, okay? Why would you pay him that early after 3 years? The reason is because you feel he's going to get better and better, and then you're going to have to pay him more money the next year. Kind of the mistake people say the Cowboys made with Prescott. They paid him. They didn't pay him early. So now he's got the leverage. He's got him by the balls. But if you look at the situation with Barkley, running backs is different. Look at Derrick Henry. That's actually a team-friendly deal. But it was a good enough deal for Henry to probably sign, but it was a team-friendly deal because I told you this before. Why would you sign Henry to a contract when the franchise tag is $10 million? You got him for next year for $10 million, right? You got him the year after that for about 13 mil, like 25% more than the 10 million, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it was 10.2 this year. So it'll go up to 13. So you got him the next 2 years for 25 million, 20, right? 24 23 million. So what's the point of you doing a deal when you got really with the franchise, you got team control for the next 2 years for the same amount of money. Now, granted, he did a 4-year, $50 million deal. So, and they can get out of this deal after the first 2 years. So they kind of did it. If Henry is performing at a high level, they got him for the years 3 and 4 for $12.5 million. So it's not a great deal for Derrick Henry, but it's a good deal for the Titans. And I didn't think he would agree to this deal because what happened in the situation was, like I said, he's franchised. It's just franchise the guy, but the quarterback franchise is a lot bigger money with Dak for 30 something million, right? So you're doing that's a bigger chunk of the cap. But for a running back, why pay the guy? They're seeing it's easier to franchise him for a couple years. But this is a friendly deal for the Titans. That's why they did that deal. And that's why this deal has nothing. This is not a great deal for Derrick Henry. A great deal would have been top running back money, 15 a year. But with Todd Gurley, they overpaid him after the third year. But if you have team control over a player, this is the thing you're seeing with Jamal Adams and the Jets. They got team control for 5 years. Why? Look at Jalen Ramsey. He's going into his 5th year in that deal, right? So they don't have to pay him. You don't have to pay Gurley for 5 years. Instead, you paid him after 3. You kind of screwed up the last 2 years of the deal, right? Look at the Mahomes deal. His guarantees on the next couple years, next 3 years are like $60 million, but he was under team control for the next 2 years.
Right.
So you got to look at all those factors. I would never pay a running back after 3 years. I mean, you own it's listen, I'm not saying I agree with it, but this is the way the system's set up. Guys coming, first round picks are under team control for 5 years. Prescott wasn't a first round pick, so he was only under control for 4 years.
Right.
So the teams have the control with the first round picks, and you very rarely see a first round pick get extended after 3 years. Usually it's after the 4-year mark. And some of these guys are after 5 and they franchise them. So that's what you're seeing more of, team control.
Smart. Yeah. Managing the money better, not blowing it on they've seen, right? You learn from years experience of other things not working, right? And you
see Fournette, they declined his 5th year option. So he's a free agent after 4 years. They didn't even want to pay him. They don't even want to keep him for the 5th year.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Now they just lose that 5th year and they could re-sign him if they want. And I don't think he wants to play there. No one wants to play in Jacksonville. Look at Yannick Ngakoue, their defensive end there. He said he wasn't going to sign. We'll see what happens. But players are trying to force trades. They're trying to go where they want to go, but they don't have control. The Jaguars can say, screw you. We own you. Just sit out the year then. But
then Mostert now. Mostert was forced.
That's a tough situation because he's making $2.5 million, right?
Yeah.
But I like the kid. He's never really gotten the opportunity to be a workhorse back. And I don't know if he will be in this offense, get the opportunity. He's always had a good yards per carry, which what does that mean? At the end of the day, it doesn't mean, it means you produced in the time that you were given, but maybe he can't handle the workhorse load. But he's had some good games. I went back and researched his career in college, and he's never really been given the opportunity to be the man, which I like to see the guy. But look what he did last year. He had a good year, right? But he didn't have a great year. I mean, how much?
5.6. The problem is, it's sorry to interrupt here, but attempts. He only had 137 attempts, right? But he averaged 5.6 yards per carry on those attempts and got 8 touchdowns, 772 yards. Another guy that could be really good on a team, but it's like the team won't let him emerge. Like he's basically limited, like Sony Michel, another guy limited by the team. A lot of these players get caught up in teams that limit and hinder their potential. And I don't like that, I like players getting the opportunity to get full workhorse running back ability. They don't get that. Like Jonathan Taylor this year. Now he's jumping. This guy could be a workhorse running back. He's jumping into a committee with Marlon Mack. I don't like that.
Yeah, but go back to Mostert. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what kind of leverage does he have? They don't have to pay him.
No.
And he's not that good where he just ran for 1,600 yards.
No. So he could be good if he was given the opportunity. Could be.
But then I think he needs to pull a full year because his performance in the past hasn't dictated him to ask for a new contract. He's probably had conversations with the team and they probably said, you're going to be the man this year. And he's probably saying, oh, I'm going to be the man. Pay me like the man. Or who's their backup there? Tevin Coleman?
Yeah, he can't even stay on the field, though.
He said, I want to at least be paid what he's been paid. That's what he said. So he's asking for $4 million, right? A couple more million or something like that, $2 or $3 more $1 million. But you haven't played a full year yet where you've been the starter. But he's I think he's been promised the job from what I understand, reading between the lines. And he's like, okay, you're promising me to be the job. You paid me. He said this. You've paid me to be a specials teamer here. I wasn't supposed to be the man. He should be more grateful for his opportunity and perform under the contract because listen, he's still making a couple $1 million, $2.5 million. It's not like he's making $700,000 and making the minimum. He's been played like a high-end special teamer and backup running back. He's basically saying, now I'm going to be the starter, so pay me like the starter. If I'm San Fran, I'd say listen, let's see how you perform over the first 8 games, and if you blow up, but then his price is going to go up.
Right.
So it's a tough situation to be in, but the team has him this year. And they have him next year. The guy's never made a lot of money. I don't think he's going to hold out. He won't hold out. If I'm San Fran, I play him this year, I play him next year, and goodbye. That's how you do running backs.
Right. All right. So hungry guys. So who's really hungry? Fournette's hungry. Alvin Kamara's due as well. He's hungry too, right?
Everybody thought he would get paid next year. I think he was a 2nd or 3rd round pick coming out of college. Wasn't that 5-year guy. He never performed to the level last year at being the feature guy. And now he's working out hard from what I hear. He's, focused. which whatever it is, what it is. So what happens now? I mean, I don't know how good he is as a player. And I don't know if New Orleans will. I mean, I think they want to keep him, but they haven't extended him. And why don't guys extend like that? Because the team doesn't want him, right? Or the player wants too much money.
Right.
I think he wants more money, and I feels like he's in a prove it year. Not saying he'll perform, but I do feel he's in a prove it year. Right.
He signed a 4-year, 3.8 million and change contract with the Saints, including 972 signing bonus. So yeah, in 2020, he'll earn a base salary of 2.133. Yeah, 2.1 million ish.
Well, that's just a rookie deal.
Nothing.
Well, that's not nothing. I mean, that's just his rookie deal. So
yeah,
they didn't extend him. Like now they're taking. See, that's a perfect situation about a risk reward. Like if he blows up and has 1,300 yards running and or even 1,000 and has like 900 yards receiving, then all of a sudden you're gonna have to pay. If you want the guy, you're gonna have to pay him bigger money, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's the guy though to be like the workhorse. I don't think he's that. I think he played good with Ingram, and he'll be good on that team. But I don't think he's. I don't know if I mean he's electric, but I think he's more of like how Reggie Bush was, that guy that give him like 15 carries, 13 carries, give him 7-8 catches. He's a good player.
I think we talked about this before. I talked about this on my other show a little bit. Dalvin Cook, do you think he's going to hold out?
No, I don't think he can't afford to hold out. I do think Dalvin Cook is a great running back in that system, and I think the team needs him in that system to succeed because he's a really good running back. There, you can plug other guys in, but listen, he definitely is a really good running back. So I think they want him in that system, the zone scheme that Gary Kubiak implemented that last year when he was there. So I do think they need him, but I don't think they want to pay him what he wants. I think they would get a deal done if it's a reasonable price like Derrick Henry. Not in that price range, but you know how Derrick Henry said, shit, I don't have the leverage. He was smart. I don't have the leverage. I'm going to guarantee myself. He was already guaranteeing himself $10 million, but he guaranteed himself 25, right? And he just did the deal. So Derrick Henry, he's a great running back, but Dalvin Cook, what's he worth? 7-8 million bucks. But why are they going to pay him when they got him for like a couple million this year and then they got him next year for 10? So in that situation, they got him for 12 million for the next 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So if you're the Vikings, all right, what if you guarantee him $20 million? Why would you? Because you got him for next 2 years for
12.
So like, I like to get an out if I'm a team after 2 years. Years ago, the contracts were written so that everybody was out after 3 years because you know how they used to be inflated. Like Derrick Henry should have done a 4-year, $65 million deal, 25 guaranteed over 2 years, and then the base could have been higher. Now all of a sudden, Tennessee has him by the balls over the last 2 years.
Right,
still playing at that level. He should have been making more money. But with Dalvin Cook, you look at the situation and you'd be like, all right, what's a fair deal for Dalvin Cook right now if you're him?
What is a fair deal? I don't know. I give him, but he won't want anything under 9.
He doesn't want a fair deal. He thinks he's elite.
But he hasn't stayed on the field. He hasn't finished the season.
That and they have team control this year and they can franchise him next year for $12 million for 2 years. So why are you going to pay him $25 million over the next 2 years guaranteed? You're basically just making it rain, throwing money out the. If you got him 3 years for $25 million, then you can talk because you got him 12 years, then you got the third year for 10. That's if you can guarantee 25 over 3 years, maybe you sign a 4-year extension for $37 million or something like that. And then you
trust him. I wouldn't trust him for that long. I trust him for 1 more year if he's lucky.
Yeah. Same with like Aaron Jones, not the trust him, but he's never performed at a high level besides last year, really high level. And he had 16 touchdowns, but and 3 receiving, and he had 1,000 yards rushing, 1,100 maybe close to. But
I said this before, Dalvin Cook stuck between a rock and a hard place. If he sits out, he misses out on money.
No, he gets fine money. He doesn't miss out on money. He gets a shitload of money. Like
how much does he get if he sits out?
I don't know. See, now he can't get penalized for the preseason games. I thought it was like 40 grand a day or something like that. I'm not sure, but
it's 40 grand a day if he sits out.
I think so. They just changed it and everything like that.
Okay, so then I would say no
free agency deal, and he doesn't get a year of free agency, so it's not worth it. He's going to have hundreds of thousands of fines, and then he's not going to get a year in free agency, and you're not going to earn the year. You have to like report for camp or something like that. They changed it this year.
But if he plays, he gets hurt, then he doesn't get the mega contract at all. I'm telling you, he's going to get hurt again. I guarantee it. I would bet my career on that. I would bet everything I got. He's going to get hurt. What's that?
That's football. I mean, that's the risk. You can't just do what he did in 3 years and say, I want money. Yeah, if he wanted $6 million a year, they pay him right now. And that's a fair deal, 7-8 million a year. But he doesn't want that. If I'm want to be a fair deal, I'd sign him to a 4-year extension, right? For like 30 million or something like that.
Is this ego? Is this ego, or is it just he wants what he's? It's probably ego. A lot of it is ego.
Everything. It's one thing. It's ego. Another thing that is the shelf life of running backs is low, and he knows he gets injured, and he wants his. And the other thing is just shit. Pay me. I want my money. You know, you need me. So
Yeah.
it's and the other thing is after 3 years is when a lot of guys get an extension.
Right.
If listen, Derrick Henry's deal was a win for the Titans because they were going to pay all the Titans lost in that situation. They guaranteed him for 2 years when they were only going to guarantee him for one. So if Derrick Henry gets hurt, they're stuck with him for 2 years. Right. That's the gamble for the Titans in this situation. They guaranteed him for 2 years.
Okay.
But
all right.
You know, like had 1 year deal. So
one more guy I want to talk about. I'm really high on him a lot this year. I just want to know if he's, in your opinion, because I was really thinking about this guy. I know you're not high on these guys, so you're probably not the wrong guy to ask. AJ Brown. I just think he's going to have this amazing year.
I mean, I don't know what you're listening to. I always said I was high on him. I just don't like Ryan Tannehill.
You don't like Tannehill, yes.
I mean, who would like Tannehill? What has he done? What is Tannehill? I don't know why you like him. I like AJ Brown. I don't think Tannehill is a good quarterback.
Here's a crazy prediction. Last thing I want to end this on. By the way, I like the flow of the show. I think we should do more of these shows. So if you guys like these shows, comment below. I really want to get your feedback if you like more of the talking shows. But yeah, I was just thinking about it here. My prediction, I don't think it's bold. It's similar to my last year's prediction. It seems kind of bold, but it's not. I said Josh Allen will outperform Baker Mayfield. I say stuff like Landry will outperform Odell. This year, a combined fantasy points to Tannehill and A.J. Brown will beat Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins. Who has a better connection overall in touchdowns, fantasy points, yardage? Who does better this year, honestly, from a real perspective? Hopkins and Kyler, or Tannehill, or an A.J. Brown combined?
I'm going to go with Kyler because, number one, they're a throwing offense.
Okay.
Mind? Oh, definitely going to go with Arizona. I'm not super. Arizona has one of the worst defenses in the NFL, along with the Carolina Panthers. They're going to be on the field more. I don't love Kyler Murray like other people do. This is a big year for him. I know what Tannehill can do. I'm going to go with the gamble just because I know Murray's got his issues. He holds on to the ball, gets sacked a lot. I do, but he doesn't turn the ball over as much because he does hold on to it, but he's going to throw the ball. Kingsbury's evolved the offense a little towards the NFL. He's not throwing it as much as people thought, especially he ran the ball a little more towards the last half of last season. I'm still going to go Arizona because DeAndre Hopkins is proven. He's a top 5 receiver, top 3, 4 in the NFL. Tannehill, I don't think Henry's going to perform as well as he did the last 8 games last year when Tannehill played well.
I think by default, A.J. Brown's the only guy they got. He's going to be force-fed. He's going to get the ball a lot. Whereas you're competing, he doesn't have Fitzgerald lining up with him.
But they got 800 yards last year.
He was their number 1 target getter last year, 109 targets, and Christian Kirk.
They didn't have DeAndre.
Christian Kirk's there too. Kirk, Captain Kirk.
Yeah, but he's irrelevant. You know,
no, Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah, but I don't think that. Yeah, but all these other teams have guys like that. But the man,
Corey Davis.
You know, could he break out like Mike Williams did last year and Devontae Parker? Could he have a breakout year later in his career?
Who, Davis?
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know. Maybe.
He never performed up to it. He was picked in the top 10, I think.
Yeah, he was pretty high up there.
I personally, I think I just don't like Tannehill. I would never pay the guy. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with him.
No, I don't. He's kind of like a Tyrod Taylor. He's just a guy that plugs away and gets you to a certain point, and that's it. He's just not a game winner.
Yeah. So I don't like Tannehill. Never did. Never thought he was a good quarterback. From
fantasy, I think Tannehill and A.J. Brown combined for more fantasy points than Kyler and Hopkins.
I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't think that's a reality.
Fire.
If that ever happened, how would that happen? You have to. Derrick Henry was on a tier the last 8 games of last season. I don't think you put 8 guys in the box against Henry. I don't think Tannehill has enough skill set to go back there and pick apart defenses, even in one-on-one coverage. I think AJ Brown will make some great plays with him. So you're right, he's gonna get some plays. But you asked who I like better. I like Arizona's duo.
AJ Brown, 84 targets, 52 receptions. That target count has to go up for this to happen, for my prediction. He did have 8 touchdowns receiving because there's no one else that can catch the ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
Who else is there, right? I don't know. I like him. AJ Brown, something about him is really appealing to me this year.
Good. I mean, I think he's really good. I think there's a limit because of who's throwing in the ball. I mean, Tannehill had Jarvis Landry a few years ago and did play well with him. He's been to the playoffs, but he's never, and didn't have a good yards per catch over there, or reception, whatever. And I just think Tannehill's limited into what he can do. But he'll make some plays by default. You're right, he will. But it's not going to be as much as Hopkins and Murray. I think Murray's going to really throw to Hopkins a lot.
We will see. Well, let's hope there's a season, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let's wrap this up. We could talk football all day, but I wanted to, do this talk show is kind of your idea. We should do these more often. Check out the Tom Santanello podcast. I'll link it below. Grab it on Apple. And yeah, guys, he'll talk more real football with you guys. Tom, thanks for being here, man. We got to do more of these shows, and we will during the season for sure.
All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks. Get the 16-round draft solution. Leave your questions below and smash the thumbs up. Thanks for being here, guys. And we are out.